On this episode of Deep Thrones, we recap Season 1 of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. We give our final ratings of Season 1. We prepare for Duncan Egg's next journey, and we look forward to House of the Dragon Season 3, plus many more hilarious segments. Winter is here.
Check out the hand switch, shooters on swoosh, hitters don't miss. Aria just added a ton of y'all to my list. Bitch, death wish, not to be messed with, test and quiz. They shooting shots, hitting bricks, we testing the kids.
Welcome to Deep Thrones, the most entertaining podcast in the world of Ice and Fire. I'm your host, Sims. I've got two hosts with me here. First up, Sheedy, and second up, Kens. What's up, guys?
Hi.
What? And Sims, it's the most entertaining podcast.
Okay, I was pretty sure that I said the most. I'm really
The most.
Okay, all right. You know what? We'll meet offline about this.
Save it for, we'll have a board, we'll get the whole board together and we'll discuss.
You did okay. You did okay. That was
I
good.
did okay. All right. Well, thank you. How many grapes? How many grapes?
How many grapes? 2 LaCroix.
I'd give it 4 grapes. You've done better these, but that was a
Okay,
good thing.
fine. Well, in all seriousness, a genuine thank you for Ken's hopping on the show. I've been out the past couple weeks. Missed you guys, first of all. Missed chatting Thrones with the fans and the listeners, but it's been a rough couple weeks. I had a loss in the family, but wanted to do this episode in memoriam of my brother Leonard Sims. So looking forward to having a lot of fun on this one and breaking down the last couple episodes and kind of a in memoriam of Duncan Egg season 1 as well.
Wow, couldn't have said that. Couldn't have said that any better, Chris. Thanks for being here. First of all, it's great to have you back, and also I do love having the whole Deep Thrones family here together. All three of us, the whole squad, to break down what was a wonderful season 1.
It was, and it rarely happens that all three of us are on the pod at the same time. So this is a rare occasion, but it's totally warranted because I'll just say I was shocked at how well the source material played on the screen. If you go back and listen to like what we thought about before this show kicked off, we thought fans were going to be impatient. We thought that fans were not going to understand the slowness compared to House of the Dragon or Game of Thrones, especially the later seasons. But man, like you really saw how people relate to content and good character building, good storytelling, just going back to the basics. And it was a hit. It knocked it out of the park for me.
100% agree. Actually, before we started recording, Kinsey said, she's like, all you have to do is have characters that people care about and a story that makes sense. Like the story is character driven. The characters are doing things that move the story along versus we need a kaboom here. So the characters have to move toward that kaboom.
Yeah, and let the record show. I loved this show, and because of those reasons. And yeah, I had one small critique, but I loved this show.
It was a big critique. It was a large critique. But before we get into that, are we reviewing any beverages tonight? Is anyone reviewing?
Listen, it wouldn't be the return episode without a wine/alcohol review. So, again, shout out Ken's. Like the box wine review was a freaking all-star review. First of all, really inspired me to go buy a box of wine. But that's not what we're reviewing today. Today we are reviewing Blue Run Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey.
Wow.
This is the 40th anniversary of the 1985 Bears edition. So
Ooh.
special edition here. You can see I've already done some damage to this thing. But we're gonna have a little bit on the rocks here and see what this is all about.
And so for those of you listening to the audio, he's taking a sip now. How many barrels? How many barrels of bourbon do you give that?
Hmm. Um, I don't know why I looked at the bottle as if it was going to tell me how many barrels were on there.
Yeah, it was the answer. I meant as your rating should be in barrels.
In barrels instead of wine grapes. Got it.
You threw him off with that.
You really did.
Yes. My
I will
gotcha
say-
journalism.
I will say you can tell that this one's barrel aged because of the way it is. Um, but this
Neat.
is fantastic. You can really taste the rye and the all the different notes and flavors and such.
All
I would
right.
give this one a 4.5 barrels out of 5 barrels.
Nice.
Wow.
Um,
That's pretty neat.
Very smooth. You can anything you can have on the rocks are just like neat, and it doesn't give that hard bite and that that kind of like choking. Like that's how you know it's good.
Wow.
Mm.
It's great. That honestly was great. I appreciate that review, Chris. You nailed that one. Really quickly, Kinsey, what flavor was that LaCroix you're drinking?
Still limoncello.
Limoncello. Woo! Everyone, we all get hyped for the LaCroix. We're like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
The consistency of the
Somehow,
limoncello.
somehow not sponsored yet, but still working on it.
I know. We actually got a comment on the Instagram. I forgot who did it, who said, you should deserve a sponsorship for that.
I do. I do.
So,
Honestly, yeah, let's get our people on that. If only someone on here knew anything about sponsorships, we could
Yeah.
make something
no,
work.
none of us.
But but I'm excited to get into this. We have some stuff to cover from specifically from episodes 5 and 6, and then we were gonna kind of do a final review of the whole season and just some final takes. So unless there's
Yeah.
any other intro stuff you guys want to
No,
dive in.
we're gonna discuss sort of Night of the Seven Kingdoms as a whole, but mostly 5 and 6 because Chris was not here for the reviews of 5 and 6. Kinsey and I were pretty lockstep on our takes of 5 and 6. So let's go back to episode 5, which is called In the Name of the Mother. That was the battle episode. Me and Kinsey got a little bit of heat on TikTok early on. It's actually one of our best TikToks ever in terms of views, likes, and responses. So Kinsey,
Yes.
good
I'm doing my
job.
Great
job.
job. Great job.
Good job. We took down the LinkedIn ad for a new TikTok person. We
Oh,
took it
good.
down. Well, but so essentially, people disagreed with us that it was slow. They thought it was filmed correctly and stuff. The person whose take we have not heard is Chris's, and this might
Mhm.
have helped assuage some of that heat because I think Chris agrees with most of the people who commented on TikTok. You liked it, right, Chris?
I did. I thoroughly enjoyed it. First off, let me say that you guys crushed both episodes 5 and 6. So we were pretty much in lockstep on all the takes, except for this one where the POV of the battle was all through Dunk's viewpoint. And, voices online, voices on this podcast wanted more. And I get that. Like, you want to see the whole battle that's been built up, these characters in this world you care about. You want to see how they fight. You want to see, oh, are they getting hurt? Oh, this Humphrey Harding died. I didn't even see that happen. Right. Like, that stuff it doesn't feel like the payoff that you expect in a big battle or big trial by combat scene.
Yes.
That being said, from a book reader standpoint, I was like, man, they actually hit this on the head.
Hmm.
The narrow slit from the beginning, and you're seeing like what a knight actually sees before he charges into a trial or any sort of combat, right? If you're doing lance combat, um, him being knocked out, and I'll get to the flashback scene later, but him being knocked out, and then coming back to, and then it's like, man, it's just survival mode, right? Like we got through the first lance, we got through this chivalric knightly sort of combat. Now it's Dunk fighting in Flea Bottom again. And we kind of saw that materialize throughout the fight. And so I understand like the chaoticness, and
Hmm.
you get flashes of different people that Dunk sees, but you don't really see the full picture. So I was actually pretty impressed with how they stuck to the source material with that. Again, understanding it would have been cool to see some of the other stuff, but that's not the story that's being told in the Night of the Seven Kingdoms.
So take
So
me through that. In the narrative of that book, you don't ever get to see any of the action that happens between Maekar and Baelor, or like it's just the POV of exactly of his fight with Arion. You don't get to see any of the other battles.
right, you see the flashes. So
Okay.
like you like that view with the narrow eye slit, and you
Yeah,
really don't have much
that's what's
peripheral
described on
vision
the
and
page.
within a helmet. So like when he would look around, or after the first tilt when he got knocked off the horse,
Yeah.
he was like searching to find Arion again. That was when you saw like a lot of the different people fighting, and beyond that, yeah, it was him and Arian duking it out.
I 100%. And I even we said, and I think because it's TikTok, we shortened it down to just get the takes in there. But like me and Kinsey said, like it was awesome what was in the fight. We just, and I appreciate that it was Dunk's POV, but I just would have loved Lady Ashford's POV for the fight. Just the whole entire fight. I could look around and see what's happening, but that's just because I'm selfish. That's why. I mean,
Yeah.
I
Not even
100% understand the creative direction of it was awesome, and it felt like you were in the fight. Listen, I love a POV as much as the next person, but I just would have preferred a little bit of. I'm a big Lionel guy after 6 episodes, so I was
Yeah.
like,
And
he's
look,
fine.
look,
well,
it's a totally fair take, and I get it. I just don't want the narrative to be that was done for budget's sake
Definitely
because I
different.
think it was a creative decision that they made to stick to the source material and an intentional decision to be like, hey, this is how we're different from House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones. This is supposed to be a story about Dunk and Egg. This is going to be through Dunk and Egg's POV. So there were a couple flashes where it was Dunk in the stand, or I'm sorry, where it was Egg in the stands, and you could kind of see more, but most of it was through Dunk's POV. So I respected that. And as a book purist, I was kind of snobby about it. I'm like, yeah, this is the right way to do it. So everyone else should shut up.
well,
But
okay, I appreciate your book POV, I do. But my whole point was you spent the whole season building up these other conflicts and these other characters. And like you said, it is Dunk and Egg's POV. You could have shown us a little bit of the other conflicts happening, but the reason they didn't, let's be honest, was because of budget. And they took up so much of that episode with a flashback about a brand new character that they introduced that I didn't have time to care about. And they did such a good job all season of making you care about these characters. They could have given us pieces of those other conflicts. They really could have.
And how
But
dare you? And also, how dare you compare the POV shots from Duncan Egg to the beautiful shots from House of the Dragon of Rhaenyra debating what to do, or all their good shots in House of the Dragon of Rhaenyra debating what to do, or like how about in episode 7 of House of the Dragon when Rhaenyra is debating what to do?
lots of debating.
And it's
I
beautiful
mean,
landscape shot. And you can see the whole thing. Yeah, you know who's in the room except for the characters that they haven't set up. You're kind of like, who's that guy? But other than that, you see
you
everything.
know,
But
all fair points. I'll
but
say
in all
this.
seriousness, I loved the episode.
Me
I
too.
just think it would have been even more awesome if you would have given a couple more payoffs, but you couldn't because of budget, whatever. I get it. I do like that it is sticking to the book material, but
I'll say this, and I don't think there's valid or invalid opinions on this. I
What
just
I
wanted to
think is
call
what
out the
I think really
difference.
quickly to cut you off, what I think is the valid opinion. But go ahead.
I just want to call out the difference between the books and the
yeah.
show, which we do pretty well, I would say, on this pod. But if that is the case, and it did play, if budget played into it, then two things are true at the same time.
Mhm.
The book was strictly from Dunk's POV, and that played really well into how they set up their budget, and they did it masterfully on screen.
They did. They did a good job. Maybe George did that for budget reasons when he was writing it. He was like, I just got to cut this short.
Well, they have one
Well,
pen.
Yeah, I will say the one thing we all can agree on before we get into the flashback of season 5, Ira Parker, the showrunner of The Night of the Seven Kingdoms, when Duncan Egg and House of the Dragon both, I believe, are designed to end in the same exact year, which is 2028. That'll be when each one's last season comes out. When those are done, Condell can go do his next project. Give Ira Parker the keys to the universe. If I'm HBO, I'm throwing money at him and saying, "You're the Game of Thrones guy now. You're like a James Gunn. If anyone else is doing a show in Game of Thrones universe, you can guide them, but you have to have say on everything. You do your projects in the universe, but you guide everything else." Anyways, Chris, your take
yeah.
on the flashback from season 5.
Yeah, well, just before we move on to that, I will say he's earned that respect up until this point, but season one, the first novella, The Hedge Knight, was relatively an easy task to what season two, A Sworn Sword, is going to be.
Ah,
So we'll talk about that and what's next for Night of the Seven Kingdoms, the series as a whole. But
interesting.
season two will be more challenging to adapt on screen. So we'll get to that later. But regarding the flashbacks specifically, yes, I too get annoyed when you have a major diversion from the cohesive prose narrative that we've been seeing, right? Like we were going strictly from point A to point B, and it was beautifully done. And then all of a sudden, we have this long ass flashback in like one of the major payoffs that we've been waiting for the whole season.
Mm.
That being said, it is very valuable information to have about Dunk.
Mm.
The timing of it, from reading the books, I knew he got knocked out after the first tilt. The horse went down, and then he's kind of looking around and he takes a mace to the face or a morning star to the face and he's out. So like I
Must
assumed that there would be some sort of gap to fill the time there. A 15-minute flashback maybe would have been a little gratuitous in my mind, but I gained more respect after I was reading. I went through and reread everything again because these books are pretty short. And Rafe was actually mentioned in A Mystery Night, which is the third novella, um, and gave like a little bit of background into how they were doing and Flea Bottom and things like that. So I got a lot more respect when I found out that that character was not completely made up. And
Mm.
so, um, again, from a book purist standpoint, I'm able to kind of cope with that a little bit easier than if it was just kind of pulled out of your ass.
It does give me a little bit of a more appreciation for her.
Although in the books it was a he, so but
Oh.
they didn't have a romantic relationship. They didn't say they love each other and stuff. So,
Hmm.
but I do like the take on it that Dunk is kind of a hopeless romantic, and always, maybe seeking for the nourishment and love that he would have gotten from his mother had she been around.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm assuming that that will play into the rest of these stories and things like that. But I
yeah.
didn't hate it to answer the question directly. I think it's good background context, but the timing of it was unfortunate, in my opinion.
Agree. I just wish it was shorter, you know. I just wish it was. I also never have that happen to me where something's about to happen in my life and I'm like, but what about when I was 12? Or, I never do. I never flashback. I never have cool flashbacks,
Yeah.
cinematic flashbacks when I wish I did, you know. Occasionally I'll have a
I,
dream where I'm like in
I'm
high
gonna
school
I
and I forgot my
vehemently
lock.
disagree with you on that because we've been like just shooting the shit and having some drinks before, and you're like, dude, remember that time in high school that blah blah, and starts like, come on,
Yeah. Well, that's oh, I guess does that I guess that is it. I guess yeah.
yeah,
Shit. All
that
right.
counts.
Damn. Damn. You're right. You're right. I was like, dude, do you remember we went to
It's
that
not.
battlefield and we were looting all the dead bodies, and then all of a sudden, like the Lord was still alive, and we were like, oh shit.
And then 15 minutes later,
We woke up and we were in that fucking battle, but we could only see parts of it.
I yeah, I just think it could have been a 10-minute flashback. That's all.
Oh,
That's
but
all.
and we will discuss this later, but isn't was that the red grass field where he was looting?
Oh,
Yes, yep,
Okay,
it
cool.
was,
oh,
it
We'll get
was,
that grass
and
green.
um, the location of it wasn't necessarily confirmed in canon, so we see that it was a lot closer to King's Landing than I had initially thought. So that was
Hmm.
cool to be able to see.
cool, cool. So we have to end episode 5, Chris. Your thoughts on the big reveal? Dunk, of course, wins. Arion surrenders. You can cover that as well, but then, of course, a major character dies in this battle.
Yeah. On my episode 6 notes, I'm gonna go pretty hard at some of the takes that have been against my sweet Prince Baylor. But I episode 5 to me hit it out of the park. You
Yeah,
guys rated it pretty low. I was actually flabbergasted with how low you guys rated it. But I rated it at a 9.5 out of 10.
Nine and a
Um,
half.
I thought it was exactly what I had been reading, but enhanced, and I was like glued to my seat the whole time.
9.5. Did you
Um,
give that a no shade curve? Was that, did you no shade curve that? That's a
I
deep.
mean, this is a different series. So
Okay.
we're,
So
shades
you just
out,
felt that.
shades
You
out.
just felt 9.5.
I felt 9.5.
All right, I love that. I love that.
All right.
Good for you. And it's where it's a spectrum. You could believe in, low or high. It's just about how
Speculative.
that episode moves you, you know?
And I will say, even though there was the brutal medieval combat, there was the flashback, this show has done a really good job at making every single scene mean something.
Mm.
And so even when you have the flashes to and forgive me, I don't know the lady's name, but the lady of the night, the sex worker
Yeah,
that
they
ended
really
up
stick it.
marrying the Fossaway, right? And she's invested in this and rooting. Egg, like obviously screeching for him to get back up. The flashbacks to Sir Arlen, seeing Raymond Fossaway really like coming in on his own. Um, poor Humphrey Beesbury, even like I went back and this is a whole different tangent, but I'm rewatching now with my wife, and she had quit watching after House of the Dragon, after the blood and cheese kind of fiasco with them murdering the baby.
Yeah.
She's like, "Fuck this! I've seen enough."
Yeah.
And now she's like fully into A Night of the Seven Kingdoms
Oh
again
yeah.
because it's such a different vibe. But as I'm rewatching, I'm seeing Humphrey Beesbury kind of sprinkled in the background in some of these scenes. And it's just, I'm, I guess I believe again in the fact that like there are intentional scenes and characters are developing and it means something. And we don't just have, loose end stories not being finished and, the wraiths of the world is appearing for one episode and never showing up again. Like it's very encouraging to me with where this, world of Ice and Fire is going in these series.
I agree. I agree. And I do think too, like you said, there's so many things that the lore that they hint at, the things that they say, where it's a little bit of like a little something for the fans who like nerds who love the books, like and people who don't watch like read the books aren't intimidated by it either. But like Raymond Fossaway being like, oh, and the third brother is such a misfit, they're gonna make him a maester, and we all can think about Maester Aemon, and we can all
Mm-hmm.
that fun stuff. They really, I think, this show more than any has been it was a love letter to George, really. Iris said that since day one.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll also add, not only is it like, was it all of those little Easter eggs, but it was also still entertaining. Like
Yes.
that was my biggest thing. A gripe with Hot D was you guys would rave about these little Easter eggs and stuff. I was like, yeah, but it was still not great storytelling and not great character development. Like I don't know I didn't read the books. Those things don't pay off for me. So, but this
Mm-hmm.
series had so much other payoff in the way of great characters,
Dis
great.
Disagree, Kinsey. What about episode three when Rhaenyra was debating what to do?
Oh yeah. And there was a scroll that
And
was
Damon,
supposed to
remember when
hear.
Damon was at Harrenhal tweaking
Yeah.
For the whole season.
for the entire between episodes one through eight? Remember
Tweet
that?
1 through 8, yeah.
Yeah. Chris, let's move on now since you gave that your rating. Episode six. Episode six was a little bit different. It was a slow, I wouldn't say slower. I loved episode six, the finale.
Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't matter. I don't care about the speed of an episode as long as I care about what's happening. And what was your take overall in that episode?
So I was curious as to how they were gonna kind of wrap everything up. It by nature it's a slower episode. You have the climax, and it's like, okay, what's next? My biggest note, outside of everything that you guys covered, and you guys did a great job at covering episode six, the Lionel Baratheon hate toward Baelor Targaryen, and that being like picked up by a lot of viewers and listeners and readers. I'm not going to stand for that shit.
I
Okay.
this has been irking Chris all week. I'm not even
I,
kidding. He's
like
said a couple of things to me about it. So go ahead, do monologue about it.
ridiculous. First of all, this guy, he shows up to the trial by seven, and his first thing that he says is, "I wouldn't miss this. This is the first trial by seven that's happened in 1,000 years or however long he said." He didn't say that he's going to risk his life for Sir Dunk the Tall, right? He didn't show up because he's besties with this guy. He showed up for his own glory, and for him to give this whole monologue at the end when he's trying to recruit just another knight in his service that happens to be big and can protect him, right? He's no different than all these other lords. And for him to try to stand on this, high horse or this pedestal, and slander my sweet prince, who
Baylor.
actually could have made a huge difference in this realm, right? Like,
Oh,
in my mind, would have changed the entire trajectory of what we see in Game of Thrones, the Targaryen bloodline. He was raising kind children who were, good heads on their shoulders, things like that. Like Lionel Baratheon is no person to be able to push this narrative and have this all of a sudden be the talk of the internet for the next week.
100. You
Okay.
know what? You don't need to dim somebody else's candle to make yours shine bright.
That's right, 100%. Especially my bright, sweet, beautiful princeling, Baylor Targaryen. Okay, Baylor Breakspear, the most honorable knight in the Seven Kingdoms at this point in time. He understood the risk. He had been in 1,000 tourneys. He had been in, 1,000 tilts. Like, no matter who you're facing, if it's a trial by seven, if it's a melee, right, there's always kind of a risk that you're going to have a hit that's a little bit too hard, or you're going to fall off your horse a certain way and break something, or you know what I mean? Like, if it's not death, there's always an inherent risk, whether you're facing a Kingsguardman that can't mortally wound you, or your brother who has a fucking massive mace and is fighting for his son. Baylor understood all those risks, and he still didn't want to, he wasn't lining up to go fight for Dunk, right? Like when they were in there talking about the trial by seven, and Dunk was always short man, he had to go find knights. Baylor wasn't lining up like, yeah, I'll do it. It was only when Dunk had, you know, pretty much no other option and was like, hey, I can't believe the Knights of the Seven Kingdoms are losing their, you know, chivalry and their, goodwill and all this stuff. Like, are there no true knights in the Seven Kingdoms anymore? And then Baylor shows up and says, I'll do it.
But
So go
and I
ahead,
love
Ken. Those are my
Baylor.
2 cents.
I love Baylor, and I love that he stepped up for Dunk. But isn't like doesn't Lionel's point still stand that he took less risk because there's two people that he's going up against that can't kill him?
Definitely took less risk. Yes.
He had less risk
Less risk.
than Lionel did.
Lionel said no risk.
Okay.
And he also made it seem like he showed up for the love of Dunk and to stand up for Dunk's honor and stuff,
And
when
you don't give
really
a shit.
it was self-driven. I mean, he said his line was, "You think I would miss this?"
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
He was there for glory. Do you
He was
think
there for glory.
are
Glory
you
and his boy.
Are you more mad at Lionel as a protector of Baylor, or are you mad at the showrunners for including that bit to create the confusion? I would want to separate those two because, like, we'll make jokes in lore all the time on this podcast, Chris, over the 100 plus episodes of like, man, I can't believe you did that, like Theon, you piece of shit. But are you mad just at Lionel, or are you mad at them including it? Because I think this show really is trying to make a point of everyone hates the only good dragon is a dead dragon. That's what Lionel says. I think they're really stressing the fossil ways. They kind of all hate the Targaryens or view them as like no dragons anymore, tough guy, you know?
I'm not mad at Lionel at all.
Mm.
This is classic Westeros. Most people are in it for their own gain. This is the first series where we're seeing people that aren't really with Dunk and Egg. Um, I'm more so mad about the fact that the narrative caught so much tailwinds online or headwinds
A
online,
lot.
whatever the saying is, that like Baylor all of a sudden is no longer as honorable as what he really was
Mm,
from the books or in
Mhm.
canon. Like, he showed up when no one else would for a hedge knight, and he's the heir to the Iron Throne. Like, a monologue from Sir Lionel Baratheon should not change that.
yeah, that shouldn't be the takeaway from that
I would
episode.
agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I know that was kind of eating at you this week because you've mentioned it to me, and I was like, it's a good point. Like I saw it and I liked the scene as like, okay, good job setting up the disdain for the Targaryens, but also that wasn't like my takeaway. I wasn't like I agree with it. I was like, that's how he thinks. But Dunk on the other token was like, no offense, Lionel, you're not the heir to the Iron Throne. Like, can we also talk
Right.
about that? Like, it's sometimes everything isn't equal. You know what I mean? Like, Lionel Baratheon is not as important as Baelor Targaryen. Technically, Maekar is not there. Like, the only person in that fight who really was like the one guy who's got to come out of this unscathed was
Mm-hmm.
Baelor. You know what I mean? So it's like two things can be true at the same time. Where like he technically, you could say he had less risk from, you know, the Kingsguard, but he had more risk than anybody. He had the most to lose, if
He had the
you
most
know,
on the table. He had the most chips on the table.
for
Mhm.
sure, 100%. So you know what, Chris, you can fuck you, Lionel, you piece of shit. Um,
I'm glad you said that. We'll clip that. We'll put that on TikTok.
yeah, start with that. Oh man, the comments on that one, yeah, people are gonna be pissed. And then so as we go deeper into episode 6, there's a lot of themes going around. One, I love the scene where Daron convinces Dunk to try to take Egg into his service when he says, "Hey, he wasn't always a bad kid." Dunk's like, "He's not a bad kid." He's like, "No, Aerion," meaning like the Targaryens are corrupting. Dunk also had some really good conversations with Micah. Break all that down, Chris, from your perspective viewing the episode. What did you think
Yeah,
of all that?
I mean, so this is one of those areas, and we've talked about this in episodes before of this podcast. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms has enhanced the source material in ways that Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon have not done, in my opinion. And this is an area where I was like, wow, this is adding color that makes a ton of sense. I'll start with Egg approaching Arion when he's kind of passed out in bed with a knife, and having clear thoughts about murdering Arion. It's very well lined up in the books that Egg hates Arion and wants him to die. I'm pretty sure he says like kill him, right? Like
Oh yeah.
that was in the episode, that was in the books too. Um, but this is clearly showing what we've all seen, like the flip of the coin of the Targaryen, whether it's going to be someone who's crazy, murderous, villainous, or someone who's chivalrous, shows up in the right way for the small folk, for the nobility. Um, and this is the flip of the coin. We see it being played out on screen, and it's something that small of like, hey, there's someone standing in between this. And it happens to be Makar, who, in my opinion, is a loving father, who might be a little bit misguided, but he's being faced with challenges that he probably didn't expect to without having his wife around, right? And having a couple crazy kids. So I love seeing that being played out on screen. Another key area that was not expanded upon in the books, when Dunk and Makar had the conversation about having Egg Squire for Dunk, it kind of ended with them separating as it did in the show. The conversation went a little bit differently, but that's more so semantics that I don't really need to get into. But it did end up in the same way. They separated. The next day, Egg showed up and was like, "Hey, I'm gonna come Squire for you. My dad agreed for me to be able to go on the road." The flash to Makar and being like, "Where the fuck is Egg?" Like clearly showing that he didn't know that Egg, or he didn't give Egg permission to be able to go, was not included in the books, and I thought that that was brilliant,
Awesome.
because Makar, again, it's showing that he cares about his kids. He wants them to be around. He wants them to be around all the time. And even though he knew that this is probably the best move for Egg, going and getting a different experience and not being around, these people who can poison your mind and give you all these bad thoughts and murderous thoughts, he wasn't necessarily willing to let go of his son yet. And it also shows the initiative that I think is so critical to Dunk's character, right? He followed, I'm sorry, to Egg's character. He followed Dunk to Ashford to begin with. Even in the first episode, like he approaches Dunk in the stable, even though it's supposed to be the stable boy that's doing that. Like Dunk has that curiosity, that initiative, that go-getter spirit. And the end of this episode really encapsulated all of that, in a masterful way, in my opinion. So I love the way it went. And again, I thought it enhanced what we saw in the books and didn't really, sow confusion or take away from the source material.
Cool.
Agreed. Chris, episode 6, what would you rate it?
Episode six. Okay, so I gave a pretty high one, 9.5 on the last one. So episode six, we'll temper things a little bit. I'm gonna go 7.8. I thought it wrapped up the season really well. But by nature of it being the final episode of a season, it's not going to rate as high as some of those climax episodes. So
Yeah.
I'll go 7.8.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. All right, I have two questions that I'm going to pose to each of you individually. You have to answer them. It's just yes or no.
Oh
Just yes
wait,
or no. Oh wait, go ahead.
that was I completely forgot that episode six was like the Fosway fucking come out episode. That was lit. Like
Oh yeah,
he
Fossaway,
Raymond
dude's killing it.
Raymond just he's got a butt. He's got a butt. I
But
like there's a TikTok where it had on loop. It feels like a butt, like the girl saying it, and I was like,
Oh, the
wow,
boy.
it's
Yeah,
just a
yeah.
great Feels like a bar. I'm like, all
Well,
right.
he's got Sweetfoot. He's got now a beautiful wife and a child on the way. And now, like you said, he's beginning the green apples here, right?
Hmm. He's got his own house now, or his own branch of a house. So yeah, legacy has been made within a 6 episode, 30 minute each season. The Fossaways, or at least the Green Apple Fossaways, I think were the real winners of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms season one.
I agree. I agree. All right, Kinsey, first question. Yes or no? That's it. That's all you can say is yes or no. Was Dunk knighted?
No.
Chris, was Dunk knighted?
People are gonna hate that it's just a yes or no. I'm gonna go with no.
Okay, I'm gonna say yes, and
Okay.
I bet at some point there'll be a flashback of Arlen knighting him. That's my guess, or they'll
Yeah.
keep it ambiguous forever, and we'll never know the answer. All right, last one. Yes or no, Kinsey? Does Makar actually feel bad about killing Baelor?
Yes.
Chris?
100%.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree. I agree. That's a yes as well. There was genuine sadness in it. Like you could tell. And Maester Aemon says it in the Game of Thrones books. It's not in the show. So I guess it's not canon to the world because this is in the universe of Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. They've been very clear about that. But Maester Aemon does say that like my father said being king was his essentially punishment from the gods for striking the blow that killed Baelor.
There's
interesting.
I love that you covered in the last Deep Thrones episode how low Makar is in the line of succession.
Yeah.
It'd be one thing if he was next in line behind Baylor, but
Yeah.
he's behind all of Baylor's sons, which I believe at this point he has two other sons, maybe three. Um, and so Makar is not making that kill to be like, oh, I want to rule the Seven Kingdoms.
Mm.
In the flash that we saw from Dunk's POV, he goes, my son, like he's trying to fight through to get to Arion because he thinks at that moment that Dunk is going to kill one of
Mhm.
his sons. So like I think that's a very relatable thing that, whether you're a parent or like, just anyone in your family, you're gonna like fight through and maybe you don't realize how hard you're swinging at that point in time. And then another thing that we talked about in our chat, I think the fit might have had something to do with that. I
Yeah.
think Baylor in the scene was wearing Makar, or I'm sorry, was wearing Valar.
Villars.
So Baylor was wearing Valar's armor at the time, which is his son. It's a smaller fit. I think had he had the proper helmet and Gorget combo, there would have been a little bit less space between his head, skull, neck area, and the iron. And, maybe that mace hit isn't lethal, but, the fact that he's wearing his son's smaller armor, I think very well could have played into the fact that it became a lethal mortal blow.
Mm.
It's such a Targaryen tradition to wear dripped out armor that gets fucking broken in by either a mace or, of course, Robert Baratheon's Warhammer against Rhaegar. Just a classic Tar. It's one of those classic bits. The Targaryens are like, check this out. It's gonna get fucking smashed.
I mean, that's one of those too where it's Steely Pate. He's got plain ass armor, but that shit protects you. It's not flashy, but it's also not gonna give in to a mace. So I mean, we saw Dunk take what, 10 to 12 blows that would have been mortal on a lot of different sets of armor. So
Yeah, Kinsey and I talked about that. We were like, should he be dead? Should he be deceased?
He got banged up.
Yeah, he had a rough go, but he's back on his feet. And then this is a continuation from a few episodes ago. Thank you guys so much for voting Westeros History Minute. And this week's is the Battle of the Redgrass Field, which is very important to this time period because again, a lot of rebellion going on with the Blackfires.
yes, super pumped to cover this. Hearing you guys kind of punt this down the road. I appreciate you guys trying to cover it with the grass being red. To start out, we'll kind of pick up where we left off on the last Westeros History Minute, where we talked about the Blackfire Rebellion and its importance to the events that we see played out on screen in A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Daemon Blackfire, bastard son of Aegon the fourth Targaryen, aka Aegon the Unworthy. He legitimized all of his bastards. Daemon Blackfyre was by far the most skilled on the battlefield and tourneys with lance out of all those kids, and so he got the sword Blackfyre, which was the ancestral Valyrian steel sword of House Targaryen, which was wielded by Aegon the Conqueror when he conquered the Seven Kingdoms on Dragonback. So traditionally in House Targaryen, the person who wielded Blackfyre was the king of the Seven Kingdoms. And so Daemon Blackfyre having that, he became the legitimate symbol of, the royalty to half of the Seven Kingdoms. And that's how far it went. It was half the Seven Kingdoms. On the other side, it was Darren, who is the king in what we see in the Night of the Seven Kingdoms, Darren the Good, Darren the Second. He was kind of bookish, pale, skinnier, not as skilled at lance, not as skilled at arms.
You just
But he
described
was
me.
yes. But he was the legitimate son of Aegon the Unworthy, and so you had half the realm fighting for Darren, half the realm fighting for Daemon. This battle, or this Redgrass Field battle, was the culmination of the first Blackfyre Rebellion, and like I mentioned earlier in this episode, it happened closer to King's Landing than I thought. I initially thought it was closer to the Reach, but it happened within view of the Red Keep, which I think is pretty cool. It talks about like the high stakes that were in that battle. You had thousands on each side, but essentially, um, Daemon Targaryen is leading the vanguard in the middle of thick fighting, like think Alexander the Great type, like going to the thickest fighting so that he can raise morale, win the battle. He's battling with a legendary member of the King's Guard, unhorses him after like the 50th tilt with war lances, and the King's Guardman is injured. So Daemon, being chivalric, goes and tries to help him up and like, hey, like guys, come cart him off, like make sure that he doesn't die in this battle. In the middle of that, Bloodraven, who is another legitimized bastard of Aegon the Unworthy, but he's fighting on the loyalist side. So he's fighting on Darren the second side. He has these archers who are the best archers in the realm. They're called the Raven's Teeth. They're situated up on a cliff overlooking the battlefield. They rain down fire, seeing that Darren is unhorsed, and kills Daemon and both of his sons
Oh,
within that kind
Yeah.
of those volleys of arrows. So it's kind of like, what we see where it's like, okay, yeah, they're loyalists, but are they really any better than what a usurper is if they're
Mhm.
seeing what's supposed to be like a very humane act and trying to help someone, and they're shooting arrows in their back and killing the successors as well.
well,
So after that, the usurpers kind of lose morale, so they start retreating, and then Aegor Rivers, aka Bittersteel, who is basically the second in command behind Daemon Blackfyre on the Blackfyre side. He rallies everyone. He says, "No, we got to keep fighting. We can still win this. We're kind of still tilting this battle." Um, and that's when the hammer and the anvil get involved. So the hammer is Prince Maekar, and the anvil is Baylor Breaks Spear. And essentially, Maekar comes in from the flank of the Blackfires, and Baylor Breaks Spear is up in the front. And at that point, they're outflanked between the hammer and the anvil, completely break morale. The
Hmm.
retreat is on, and they're completely slaughtered, and that's where the Redgrass Field gets its name. And one of those lordlings who we saw in the Night of the Seven Kingdoms, I'm assuming, is a Blackfire supporter, um, and was part of that slaughter during the retreat.
oh. So Bittersteel got slimed.
Bittersteel got slimed indeed. Although Bittersteel lived, and he was the culprit of the next two Blackfire rebellions. So he went over to Essos, was part of founding the Golden Company, and yeah,
Two
kept a lot of
questions.
Blackfire pretenders.
Brendan Rivers. He's the three-eyed raven, right?
Yep. Brendan
Technically,
Rivers,
he's in
Three-Eyed
Game of
Raven,
Thrones.
Blood Raven. Yes.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And then question number two, you when you do your night rankings in like the second or third episode, one of them was the Dragon Knight was his name, right? Was
Prince
that
Aemon the Dragon Knight.
was he
Yep.
a Blackfire?
No, so Prince Aemon the
Oh,
Dragon Knight was he served Aegon the Unworthy. So remember, he died when Aegon the Unworthy had an assassination attempt. He
that's right.
died protecting him. So, yep, he died right before these events.
The quiz, there will be a test after this, Kinsey. So I hope you
Yeah.
were paying attention.
I was riveted, but
It
I
was
didn't.
good.
Those were good questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Thank you guys again for voting. So one of our final few segments here. What's next for Night of the Seven Kingdoms? And most importantly, what's next for Dunk and Egg?
So, what's next for Duncan Egg? This one's going to be, like I mentioned earlier, a challenge because The Sworn Sword is, to me, the slowest book out of the three novellas of Duncan Egg.
Mhm.
So you have The Hedge Knight, which is what we just watched in season one, The Sworn Sword, which is what we'll see in season two, and then The Mystery Knight, which is season three, which in my opinion is the best book out of three of them. Um, the Sworn Sword, they're in the Reach again. There's a drought, one of those like 1,000 year type droughts where like people are dying left and right. There's flies on bodies covering everywhere. There's rivers and streams drying up. So it becomes a very desperate time frame, and he's in the service of this lord, aka the Sworn Sword, and there's a lot of that. Okay, how noble are these people really? There's someone he's serving with that's an absolute piece of work that like pretty much starts a war with the neighboring lord. And then that's kind of the setting of the season. And I'm not gonna like give any spoilers or anything, but there has been a casting for Lady Weber, who is one of the antagonists in season two. Um, I think the casting hit it out of the park. She looks exactly how she was described in the books. But I do think a lot of season two is going to depend on how they fill some of the slow periods. So I
Mhm.
think there's going to be a lot of flashbacks into Duncan, Egg, and Dorne because leading up to the Sworn Sword, they say that Duncan Egg visited Dorne to go follow Tanzel Tutal. So
Oh,
we'll see how they fill that in. I could be surprised again because I thought the same thing with season one where I'm like, this is going to be too slow. People aren't going to have patience for it. People aren't going to respect the long character building and stuff. And I was proven wrong. So we'll see. But I hope it's the same in season two.
so there could be a little romance with Tansel.
If they do the flashbacks in Dorne, there very much could be. But they're
Ooh,
listen.
I'm
I
excited.
people won't remember this a year from now, anyways. There's going to be romance regardless. But
Yeah, well, Kinsey was saying last week, Raymond and Dunk had a real long hug.
Real long hug.
Just saying.
they mentioned in I don't know if it was like an interview with a newspaper or in our a newspaper. What am I 50? An interview with like a
You heard
source.
it on the radio.
Yeah, but they did say that there were going to be ancillary characters that return in season two, and in my mind, I'm kind of trying to think who that could be. So, uh,
I bet they're gonna like find a way to get Lionel in there, probably, right?
I mean, that'd be a reach.
Yeah.
Mm.
Because he lives in the
Be a reach.
Stormlands and they're in the Reach, right?
Yeah,
Or in
yeah.
Dorne. So I don't know. But
Hmm.
we'll see. All right. One more question before we get to our final topic. Season one, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, overall rating. Kinsey, 1 to 10. What do you think? Just the vibe. Just off the cuff. We weren't prepared for this. This is gotcha journalism. This is how they do it on the late night news.
I would go like a like an 8.9, maybe
Nice.
maybe a little higher. I don't like to give round numbers, but I feel like a 9 is actually better.
Then an 8.9.
Yeah, well,
Nailed it.
more accurate. Let's see. How do you count to 10?
Chris, what do you give season one?
I'm struggling not to say a 10 but I'm not going to do that because 10 is perfect. You can't be perfect. But this was like it exceeded my expectations from what I read. So I'm going to give it a 9 because Kinsey was scared to give it a 9. Uh, but look, I mean, we've talked about it. I don't want to go back and say the same things over again, but it enhanced the areas in the books where I thought it might have been lacking a little bit. And to be honest, it restored my faith in making this simple.
Mm.
I mean, we fell in love with characters on Game of Thrones from most of the dialogue scenes or, the traveling from point A to point B scenes. And like when you break it down, like that is really what we're seeing in Neither Seven Kingdoms outside of the trial by combat. And so it restored my faith in make keeping it simple and the people will like it.
Great. No, I love that. 8.9 Kinsey, 9.0 Chris. I'm gonna give it a 9.1. So,
That's
yeah.
We're
outnumbered for
consistent here. We're
Yeah.
consistent here.
People have been asking, what's next? Since we asked what's next for Another the Seven Kingdoms for Duncan Egg, what's next for the Deep Thrones pod? Well, a show that we've been making fun of while celebrating Duncan Egg, but we're going to go into it unbiased. We have probably 10 episodes left this year, and I'll tell you why. We got a pre-show episode, we have 8 season episodes, and then, of course, the Thronies, right? And the Thronies, we're going to be really promoting the Thronies during the show because we have hats to give out to a potential fan of the year, all right? We've actually a lot of engagement this season that we were correlating in the background through AI to find out who actually is the fan of the year. So, but what is next for Deep Thrones, of course, it is covering House of the Dragon, um, which the trailer came out. I talked about it a little bit last week. Chris, what did you think of the trailer of House of the Dragon?
It it looked great. I'm jaded, but it looked great.
It
It
looked great,
looks
like physically, it looks very, ooh, that's cool.
it looked great. I from seeing a Night of the Seven Kingdoms, like I just said, the simplicity was refreshing. This looks like the exact opposite of that. It looks like we are going to throw all this shit in your face as fast as we can. It's going to be dragons. It's going to be fire. It's going to be blood. It's going to be betrayal, which is all exciting. But without that character building, without that storytelling, weaving it all together, it just comes off as gratuitous and unmeaningful. And so I'm excited. I'm gonna go into it with an open mind. I'm a nerd for this world, so like I'm gonna love it regardless compared to what other people think. But for an honest opinion, they have to earn my respect. That show has to earn my respect back after losing it in season 2. So
Yeah.
that's my thoughts on it right now.
Yeah, agreed. I think so in my opinion, 8 episodes of a dragon blasting a castle is the flip side of the same coin of 8 episodes of Daemon tweaking in Harrenhal. It's all about balance. It's all about balance. You got to give me Darren tweaking in Harrenhal, or I'm sorry, Daemon tweaking at Harrenhal, but then you got to give me a dragon blasting a castle. You know what I mean? You got to
Mhm.
balance it out a little bit. If otherwise this season is going to be an overcorrection from all of our complaints from last season. Just in
Mhm.
the opposite direction. They're like, "Oh, make fun of us now. Here's boom, boom, boom." It's like, no, it's just about like pacing your show correctly. That's all it's
Yeah.
about.
Mm.
Especially if it's going to be a 2 year release. If like, this came out last summer, I'd be like, "Ah, I guess it's not that bad in hindsight." But if you're going to wait every 2 years, you know,
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how this goes. That said, I still haven't watched the trailer.
tells you all you need to know. We're not motive. It's a minute and a half, and there's no motivation to watch it because we're loving A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. You know?
Yeah, I just like I really want to keep my expectations low so that I can keep an open mind and hopefully be pleasantly surprised and like this show. But yeah, I'm sure the trailer is great. I
Oh,
just
it's awesome. Kins, watch the trailer. You'll love it. It
But
looks
I
really
almost think it'll get me overhyped. Like it's probably really good and it's gonna make it look like it'll be the best season of television ever. And I just don't want to be let down. So I'm just gonna not watch it.
The trailer's great. It's a minute and a half of Rhaenyra not knowing what to do.
Hmm.
And they're like, season 3 is coming this
So more of
June.
the same.
And Rhaenyra's
I
like, I just think we could avoid war. And everyone's like, they're attacking us outside.
can I just I don't want to come off too harsh on the show because there were some really good moments, and especially in season one, like it was slower paced, but I thought that they did a really great job at taking what was in the source material and bringing it to very vivid, colorful, full of life, screen play. So
Season
I
one
was
was great.
very, yeah, was very happy about that. That being said, looking at the trailer, there's already stuff that is different from the books that I'm like, this just doesn't this might not make sense. Again, I haven't seen the season and we don't have like early access, but we're pretty cool. We're not that cool.
We're working on it.
Uh, we're working on it. But the fact that like Aegon fucking fell hundreds of feet on Dragonback after like being attacked by a massive dragon and like being burned in the air and he's walking around and like choking people out in the trailer. Get the
Mm,
fuck out of my face. I'm sorry. That's
mm,
stupid.
He's built different.
That's stupid. Like in the books, he's like literally hiding out in a cave for like months, maybe even years, recovering, and his dragon Sunfire recovering before he bursts back onto the scene. Like
mm,
that grinds my gears just seeing that. Secondly, I see like Rhaenyra and Allison are back channel dealing, cutting deals again. Like that's fucking stupid. They
mm,
the whole point of like the war was that like Rhaenyra's side hates the Hightowers so much for like the fact that they usurped the throne that they're doing all this dirty shit, trying to kill all of them the whole time. Like it's
mm.
bad blood. They hate each other. They're not like trying to be like, oh, you can sneak in to the, between the gates so that you could catch us off guard and stuff, but I'll let you in because we grew up together. Like, no, stupid.
They don't give a like. Think of Lucerys. Think of Lucerys. Think of little whatever the kid's name was, Aegon's kid that got his head chopped off. Think of those
Yeah.
children, and they're
Yeah.
like, maybe war is avoidable while Kristen Cole is actively conquering castles, and they're like, let's think about
Yeah.
this. All right, wait, we're falling into our old trap.
And like,
I'm just this is the honest opinion on the trailer. Like it looks like a Michael Bay movie where
mm,
the storytelling is just driven by the fact that they want to have these big battles, so they're going to do what it takes to get to those, as opposed to having the characters lead up to a climax that like logically makes sense to those battles.
What were
mm.
you gonna say, Kins?
I was gonna say, correct me if I'm wrong, but the first season you felt it stuck pretty closely to the source material, right? And they like honored
Yeah.
it, and then just like completely diverted in the second.
And there was a situation where Miguel Sapochnik left after season one, and they
Oh.
brought in a new showrunner alongside Ryan Condal. Ryan Condal was sort of the holdover, but now we're hearing that like George came out and said that Sapochnik and Condal had a falling out, and
Mm.
Sapochnik wanted his wife to be a producer on the show. Condal said no. HBO got involved, and George sided with Condal because George kind of got Condal that gig, and now look how that's bitten him in the ass. He's talking shit about him in press, and HBO is like, please stop.
They stopped
Yeah.
doing that.
Season one by nature it was slow. I mean, it was
But it was
I
good.
I
But I
couldn't
It
liked
was
tell
it.
you how
good.
Yeah.
many times I fell asleep reading A World of Ice and Fire during that build up
Mm.
to the Dance of the Dragons. But it's necessary. Like it's great context. It shows like how Viserys kind of was too kind-hearted and let things go down a slippery slope. But leaning back into what I think is going to happen in season three, I think what was the most off-putting for me was that it insulted my intelligence as a viewer, that it being season two. Like you just strung me along, strung me along. And then the climax, you're like, oh, it's 2 years from now, but it's gonna be fucking huge. And it's like, what?
Yeah, you know what else is
Like,
crazy? Is that like is this over the course of like 2 weeks? Is Viserys' body not even cold yet? Like I'm not even kidding. Like what is the time? Viser technically the end of season one when Viserys dies and the
mhm.
Greens usurp the throne to now is like a month? Like no
Yeah,
joke. I think that's
yeah,
the
Wow.
timeline.
yeah. Up until Rhaenyra's like alerted to the fact that Viserys died, it was like the Greens essentially couldn't hold off any further because Viserys's body was starting to smell too bad
Mm.
in his essentially like chambers. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was probably about a couple weeks. So
Jesus Christ.
yeah, but we're gonna love it.
We're
We're
gonna
gonna
be
cover
here.
it.
I will be there for every episode. I
We're,
will
we're
be
gonna
doing
cover
my
it honestly.
damage.
The
Hmm.
three of us are gonna be doing a great job. That's what's next for Deep Thrones. 10-ish more episodes. Of course, the pregame one, 8 covering, and of course the Thronies. And maybe at some point between, well, football coming up, we'll then have a Night of the Seven Kingdoms in early 2027. It's exciting. Maybe we'll sneak in a Westeros history. No, what was the story? It's Westeros story at some point in the future. We're not making
Yeah,
any
yeah.
promises. At some point there will be one, just not. There's no timeline for it. All right, don't stick me in anything. And also we got to do a few of these in person this summer if we can. Obviously, we're very busy individuals because if we do them in person, then I can be in on the tasting. Chris can bring me something to try, and I can give my review. Um,
Mm. I
so
will do a limoncello LaCroix.
Limoncello Record. Let's
Crispy.
let's everyone give everyone give our final thoughts. My final thought, I'll say this. We'll wrap it up this way. A Night of the Seven Kingdoms season 1 was beyond my wildest expectations. We've talked about it ad nauseum. The fact that 24 million views they're averaging per episode. They had 9 million views in the finale in the first 3 days. Unheard of numbers. We thought it would be like this was HBO's sort of peace offering to fans of the lore. Like, hey, we know you're not huge about House of the Dragon. Hey, hang tight because we can do this and we have all these other things in the works and we'll see what happens, you know? But no, everyone loved it. My parents, who don't know anything about the lore of Westeros, adored this show. My family group chat was actively talking about this show. It was a home run. It hit it out of the park. Ira Parker, good job. Kinsey,
Agreed. I mean, loved it top to bottom. One tiny little critique, but otherwise, I loved it.
Um, yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Sheeds. I think I loved it a little bit more because having read the books and loving the book and then seeing how great it came to screen. Um, but the little thing, they did all the little things right. And that really makes all the difference, right? Like when you're watching something, you're engaged. There's not big explosions, there's not fire, there's not all these, crazy things happening, but you're still engaged and hanging on every single word that they say. That's how you know you got it right. So yes, 100%. And then when it comes to House of the Dragon, I'm not fully out. I
we'll
I
see.
will be I will be watching intently. We'll
Yeah.
cover it honestly. But that's a show that has to earn my respect back because I did feel disrespected in season 2. So
Agreed. Is
we'll
it,
see
but
how
it
season
can
3
do it,
plays
right?
out.
It
It
can
can
win you
do
good.
it 100%. I love that story. The Dance of the Dragons is still one of the best stories throughout the whole entire lore of Westeros. Um, but they've got a lot of work to do, and I hope that they get it right because it's a story that demands justice. And Rhaenyra is one of the like coolest characters again throughout the whole lore of Westeros. So yeah, I hope they get it back.
And
Hope they get it
bef
back.
We're
before we
rooting
sign
for him.
off, what was that, Kins?
Said we're rooting for him. I
We are.
really.
Mhm.
Um, I want to say one thing before we sign off. Chris, shout out to you. Again, we've talked about this on the pod, but you predicted that the two shows that they would make post Game of Thrones would be the Dance of Dragons, which is House of the Dragon, and Dunk and Egg. And you said to me many times leading up to Dunk and Egg, you're like, this show will be the show that like saves the Game of Thrones universe. And there's really no doubt that it has. Like HBO is probably looking at all of its IP and like, what else can we make? Because this has been a home run. And I will credit HBO for being deliberate, but Chris, you called it.
Appreciate that. I'm hoping the next two up will be Robert's Rebellion in some shape or fashion and Aegon's Conquest. And yeah, I mean, I won't go on and on. I have a lot that I want to see, but I think those two are the preeminent ones. So
Last time you did that, it happened. So we'll see. That'd be pretty cool. That'd be
we'll
pretty
see.
cool. Well, we normally end this with me saying to someone to hit me up, but since Chris opened it with that beautiful message in honor of Chris's brother, I think we end it that way as well. This episode was for him. Chris, we love you. We love you, everyone who listens. And this episode is dedicated to Leonard.
Appreciate you.
tested, quiz.